Hello viewers and welcome to Newsweek South Asia. Here we bring you fresh perspectives and in-depth insights into the geopolitical, strategic and security landscape of South Asia. Let's take a look at the headlines first. India slams Pakistan for using Pakistan-occupied Jammu Kashmir as terror hub. Indian Army Chief calls Pakistan epicenter of terrorism amid Baramulla crackdown. And Malala Yousafzai urges Muslim leaders to back gender apartheid legal push. In a major crackdown, Indian security forces arrested 3 terrorists within 24 hours of a grenade attack on a security camp in Baramulla, Jammu and Kashmir. The operation comes amid Army Chief General Upendra Trivedi's strong remarks, calling Pakistan the epicenter of terrorism. The Army Chief highlighted that 80% of terrorists active in the region are Pakistanis, reaffirming Islamabad's role in orchestrating violence. Here's the full report. Security forces in Baramulla acted swiftly after a grenade attack targeted the Territorial Army security camp on January 7th. Within 24 hours, 3 individuals involved in the attack were arrested. Among those apprehended were a surrendered ex-terrorist, the son of another surrendered terrorist, and a key conspirator linked to a 2-year-old narco-terror case. Recovered from the suspects were an AK series rifle, a pistol, 250 live AK rounds, 21 pistol rounds, and a hand grenade.
Unknown terrorists with the intent to cause harm and destruction lobbed a grenade towards the 163 TA premises, which is a security force camp. The grenade exploded on top of the MI room structure, causing significant damage. Upon receiving this information, FIR number 01 of 2025 of Police Station Patan was registered under Section 109 Bharatiya Nyaya Sanhita and Sections 16 and 23 of Unlawful Activities Prevention Act, and an investigation was promptly initiated. Necessary legal procedures, including the evidence collection at the scene of crime, were carried out meticulously through an in-depth analysis of electronic and technical evidence available from the spot, coupled with human intelligence and relentless efforts by multiple investigative teams. The perpetrators were apprehended within 24 hours.
As security forces neutralize terror threats, Army Chief General Upendra Trivedi has once again held Pakistan responsible for fueling violence in Jammu and Kashmir. Speaking at the annual Army Day press conference, General Trivedi stated that 80% of terrorists active in the region are Pakistani nationals.
However, the terror infrastructure across remains intact. Infiltration attempts continue, including from the IB sector or so many other avenues which are available, along with drone attempts to smuggle warlike stores and narcotics.
The Army Chief emphasized the shift in the region's dynamics. The people of Jammu and Kashmir are increasingly rejecting violence, as reflected in high voter turnout during recent elections. This shift is also evident in declining local recruitment for terror outfits. Intelligence reports reveal that of the 140 terrorists currently active in Jammu and Kashmir, 80% are Pakistanis. Heavy snowfall in North Kashmir has further restricted infiltration attempts. Launch pads on Pakistan's side of the line of control currently house around 60 terrorists, with only 20 stationed in the northern sector. The Poonch Rajouri sector, where infiltration routes are more accessible, now hosts about 40 terrorists. However, the Indian Army's robust counter-infiltration grid has minimized their chances of success.
In hinterland, in recent months, increased terrorist activities was seen in North Kashmir and Doda-Kishtwar belt. Our CT grid there has been reinvigorated and tempo of kinetic ops has been enhanced. Past year, 60% of terrorists eliminated were of Pakistan origin. As of today, whatever is remnant in the Valley and Jammu area, we feel that around 80% or more are from Pakistan origin. Overall, violence parameters under control, tourism, development activities, Amarnath Yatra, where we witnessed more than 5 lakh pilgrims this time, and peaceful conduct of elections are indicators to a positive change. So the theme of terrorism to tourism is gradually taking shape.
The arrests in Baramulla also shed light on the nexus between terrorism and narco-trafficking. Pakistan's ISI continues to use drug money to fund terrorist activities. In 2024, the Indian Army deployed an additional 15,000 troops in the region, leading to the neutralization of 73 terrorists, 60% of whom were Pakistani nationals. Islamabad's role as the epicenter of terrorism remains evident, but its attempts to destabilize Jammu and Kashmir are being thwarted by India's determined counter-terrorism efforts. The neighboring countries' attempts to destabilize the region are fluttering. As the local population continues to reject violence and support peaceful development, the shift towards progress is clear. Jammu and Kashmir is embracing peace, leaving Pakistan's narrative behind. Pakistan's relentless pursuit of destabilizing India through its sponsorship of terrorism continues to expose its destructive agenda. In a sharp rebuke, India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, speaking in Jammu and Kashmir, unveiled Pakistan's role in nurturing terror networks in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir. This region, instead of seeing development, has become a hub for terror activities under Islamabad's tacit support. Pakistan's obsession with fostering extremism highlights its disregard for human rights and global security. A report.
Pakistan's persistent attempts to destabilize India through its sponsorship of terrorism are drawing sharp criticism from Indian leadership. Recently, India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh, speaking at a veterans rally in Jammu and Kashmir, laid bare the stark realities of Pakistan's actions in Pakistan-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, a region that has long been a hub for terror activities. In a scathing attack on Pakistan, Defence Minister Rajnath Singh accused Islamabad of turning POJK into a breeding ground for terrorism. He highlighted how the region is being exploited to host terror training camps and launch pads for infiltration into India. Numerous intelligence reports have confirmed the presence of training camps and launch pads in the region, where militants are prepared for cross-border infiltration into India. These camps are part of a larger network operated with tacit support from Pakistan's military and intelligence agencies.
पीओके की जमीन का इस्तेमाल आतंकवाद का खतरनाक कारोबार चलाने में किया जा रहा है। यह बात आज मैं खुलकर कहना चाहता हूं। वहां आज भी आतंकवादियों के लिए ट्रेनिंग कैंप चलाए जा रहे हैं। सीमा से सटे हुए इलाकों में लॉन्च पैड बने हुए हैं। इसकी पक्की जानकारी है। भारत सरकार को सब पता चल रहा है। पाकिस्तान को इनको खत्म करना ही होगा।
Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir, which Islamabad claims as its territory, remains underdeveloped and exploited, with its residents denied basic rights and dignity. Instead of addressing their grievances, Pakistan uses the region as a pawn in its proxy war against India. Furthermore, the unchecked spread of extremist ideology has created a culture of violence and intolerance within Pakistan. Recently, the so-called Prime Minister of Pakistan occupied Jammu and Kashmir, Chaudhry Anwarul Haq, openly advocated for the promotion of a jihadi culture. Rajnath Singh condemned the recent remarks by POJK Prime Minister Anwarul Haq, calling them a continuation of Pakistan's anti-India agenda nurtured since the era of General Zia-ul Haq.
पीओके पाकिस्तान के लिए एक फॉरेन टेरिटरी से अधिक कुछ नहीं है। पीओके में रह रही अवाम को एक डिग्निफाइड लाइफ से महरूम रखा जा रहा है। उन्हें मजहब के नाम पर हिंदुस्तान के खिलाफ बरगलाने और उकसाने की कोशिश पाकिस्तान के हुक्मरानों द्वारा यह बराबर की जा रही है। हाल ही में पीओके के इलीगल वजीर आजम अनवारुल हक ने हिंदुस्तान के खिलाफ जो जहर उगला है वह पाकिस्तान की ही साजिश का हिस्सा है। पीओके के वजीर आजम अनवारुल हक जो आज कह रहे हैं वही भारत विरोधी एजेंडा पाकिस्तान के हुक्मरानों ने जनरल जिया-उल हक के जमाने से चलाया हुआ है।
Pakistan's obsession with destabilizing India has led it to nurture and fund extremist groups such as Lashkar-e-Taiba, Jaish-e-Mohammed and Hizbul Mujahideen. While these terrorist organizations wreak havoc in India, their activities also undermine Pakistan's own stability. Radicalization and violence have spiraled out of control within Pakistan's borders, leading to a surge in attacks targeting civilian security forces and minority communities. Pakistan's support for terrorism has not gone unnoticed by the international community. The country has faced scrutiny from the Financial Action Task Force (FATF), which kept it on its grey list for years due to its failure to curb terror financing. Although it was removed from the list in 2022, concerns remain about its commitment to dismantling terror networks. Countries like the United States, France, and India have consistently called out Pakistan's double standards on terrorism. Despite claiming to be a victim of terrorism, Pakistan continues to provide sanctuary to individuals like Hafiz Saeed and Masood Azhar, designated terrorists under UN sanctions. Pakistan's actions have inflicted immense suffering, not just in India, but also on its own people.
Afghanistan's women continue to face unimaginable repression under the Taliban regime, but a voice has emerged to challenge their brutal policies. Nobel Peace Prize laureate Malala Yousafzai has called on Muslim leaders to lead the charge in declaring gender apartheid a crime under international law. Speaking at a high-profile summit in Pakistan, Malala urged global Muslim voices to confront the Taliban's oppressive treatment of women and girls. We have a report. Since taking power in August 2021 in Afghanistan, the Taliban's draconian decrees have systematically stripped Afghan women and girls of their fundamental rights. From banning women's education beyond primary school to excluding them from most professions and public spaces, Afghanistan has become a prison for half its population. Protests against these oppressive policies have met with brutal crackdowns. Activists who dared to speak out faced threats, arrests, and even torture. The regime's suffocating policies reached new lows in December 2024, when they banned the construction of windows, caging women further in their homes. Recently, Nobel Peace Prize winner Malala Yousafzai addressed a summit on girls' education in Muslim communities in Pakistan, urging Muslim leaders to take a stand against the Taliban's atrocities. At the summit organized by the Organization of Islamic Cooperation and the Muslim World League, Malala Yousafzai urged scholars and leaders from Muslim-majority nations to denounce the Taliban's treatment of women.
Under their system of gender apartheid, the Taliban are punishing women and girls who dare to break their obscure laws by beating them up, detaining them, and harming them. Simply put, the Taliban do not see women as human beings. They cloak their crimes in cultural and religious justification.
Malala's appeal comes as Afghanistan faces one of the most regressive eras for women's rights in modern history. Since their return to power in 2021, the Taliban have issued over 70 decrees restricting women's freedom, including banning girls from schools, barring women from working, and forbidding them from accessing public spaces like parks and gyms. The Taliban's most recent edicts are even more shocking. Women are prohibited from praying aloud in each other's presence, and NGOs have been warned to stop employing women or risk losing their license.
Afghan women and girls must be free to shape their own future. The very loudest champions of their cause must be fellow Muslims, leaders such as yourselves.
Humanitarian organizations warn that banning women from NGO roles is crippling relief efforts in a nation where millions rely on aid. The United Nations has called for immediate action, emphasizing that women are vital to reaching vulnerable communities, particularly in healthcare and education.
Over the past 3 years, the women and girls of Afghanistan have seen an egregious erosion of their human rights. National edicts and local initiatives have curtailed their rights to education and decent work and ended their rights to freedom of movement, peaceful assembly, and freedom of expression. The cumulative impact has almost erased women and girls from public life and left them virtual prisoners in their own homes. This oppression of half the population, based on gender, is unparalleled in today's world and amounts to state-sponsored, systematic gender persecution. This is self-harm on a national scale, which will have catastrophic and intergenerational impact on the country's prospects for peace and sustainable development.
Experts have also raised alarms over the economic impact of excluding women from public life. With women representing nearly half of Afghanistan's workforce before the Taliban's return, their absence has further weakened an already collapsing economy.
Cumulatively, of course, this is going to be a disaster for the economy. It's one thing excluding women from traditionally male roles. The economy can still survive. But excluding women from traditionally female roles is very problematic because men really either don't want to or can't fill those roles. Because usually in a patriarchal society, what ends up happening is anything that can be monetized is taken over by men, except the ones that, don't have that sort of male machismo or prestige attached to them. Specifically in the case of, nursing or midwifery. Sometimes even teaching. This is going to be, it's the Taliban's own grave to dig and lie in.
Despite widespread condemnation, the Taliban remain defiant, justifying their actions as being in line with Afghan culture and Islamic law. However, no foreign government has recognized the Taliban regime, and global leaders are now under pressure to take more decisive action. Balochistan, Pakistan's largest yet most marginalized province, is in the throes of a deepening crisis. The reality of enforced disappearances has left families shattered and communities living in constant fear. From students to activists and everyday citizens, countless individuals are being forcibly taken, allegedly by state forces, vanishing without a trace. This alarming practice isn't just a violation of human rights. It's a reminder of the systematic silencing of dissent in the region. Let's delve deeper into this grim story.
पाकिस्तान की खुफिया एजेंसियों ने लापता कर दिया था। उनका अब
In the harsh remote landscapes of Balochistan, a chilling reality casts a long shadow over the region's political turmoil and growing unrest, the pervasive issue of enforced disappearances. Under the cover of night, individuals, students, activists and ordinary citizens are forcibly taken from their homes or workplaces, disappearing without a trace. These abductions are not the work of ordinary criminals, but are orchestrated by forces cloaked in state authority, security agencies, intelligence operatives, and paramilitary groups. Left behind are families plunged into agonizing uncertainty, with their desperate requests for information often met with silence or outright denial. The victims are held in undisclosed locations, deprived of legal rights and any communication with their loved ones. The region has seen growing protests and demonstrations as families of the disappeared and human rights activists unite to demand the release of the missing and to draw attention to the ongoing human rights violations in Balochistan.
इस मुल्क के कानून के अंदर बलोच चाहे जिस भी नस्ल से ताल्लुक रखता हो, उसकी जुबान कोई भी हो, उसकी मजहब कोई भी हो, उसको एक गुलाम की हैसियत की तरह रखा गया है और उस गुलामी की हैसियत के तले बलोचिस्तान के वसाइल की लूटमार के लिए बलोच नस्ल कुशी की गई है। बलोच नस्ल कुशी की बहुत सी शक्लें हैं और वो शक्लें शायद हर इलाके में हर जगह आपको मुख्तलिफ नजर आएंगी, मगर वो तमाम एक ही पॉलिसी के उस पर हो रही है और वो पॉलिसी ये है कि बलोच को गुलाम रखा जाए।
Numerous activists, journalists and ordinary citizens have gone missing in Balochistan, often alleged to be abducted by security forces or other state actors. The government's failure to conduct thorough investigations or account for the missing has drawn widespread criticism. Reports of extrajudicial killings by security forces have further intensified distrust between the Baloch population and the state.
देखिए हमारे और आपके दरमियान उन नौजवानों को जिनकी जगह होनी चाहिए थी स्कूल, जिनको कॉलेज में होना चाहिए था, यूनिवर्सिटीज में होना चाहिए था, मगर वो मंशियात के शिकार है, मगर उनके हाथों में हथियार दिए गए हैं ताकि वो सरकार के डेथ स्क्वाड्स में जो है ना काम कर सके। ये पूरे बलोचिस्तान की कहानी है।
In Balochistan, the cycle of enforced disappearances and human rights abuses has exacerbated violent conflicts between separatist groups and security forces. Ignoring these pressing issues could have serious political and social repercussions for Pakistan.
And with that, we come to the end of this edition of Newsweek South Asia. We'll be back next week with more news, views and analysis from the subcontinent. Meanwhile, do keep writing to us at nwsa@anin.com. This is Shivangi Mishra signing off on behalf of the entire production team of Newsweek South Asia. Goodbye and take care.